Hello, Unbothered family, and I would like to welcome you to the first of the Dark Brotherhood episodes. Of course, we'll be starting with our favorite Dark Brotherhood, the Freemasons, and we'll go on from there. Now, anytime I speak about any of these secret societies, I like to start off with quotes from their own people or quotes from people who dealt with them in the ancient world. So we'll start off with Pope Leo, who stated, "We wish it to be your first rule of all to tear away the mask from Freemasonry and to let it be seen as it really is, and by sermons and pastoral letters to instruct the people as to the artifice used by societies of this kind in seducing men and enticing them into their ranks, as to the depravity of their opinions and the wickedness of their acts. As our predecessors have many times repeated, let no man think that he may for any reason whatsoever join the Masonic sect, if he values his Catholic name and his eternal salvation as he ought to value them. Let no one be deceived by a pretense of honesty. It may seem to some that Freemasons demand nothing that is openly contrary to religion and morality. But as the whole principle and object of the sect lies in what is vicious and criminal, to join with these men or in any way to help them cannot be lawful." Now let's follow this quote up with something from a fellow Freemason himself, Mr. Manly P. Hall. Now, Manly P. Hall says the following: "In the days now long past, the gods walked with men, and the instructors from the invisible planes of nature were still laboring with the infant humanity of this planet they chose from among the sons of men, the wisest and the truest. These they labored with, preparing them to carry on the work of the gods. After the spiritual hierarchies themselves had withdrawn into the invisible worlds, with these specially ordained and illuminated sons, they left the keys of their great wisdom, which was the knowledge of good and evil. They ordained these anointed and appointed ones priests or mediators between themselves, the gods, and the great mass of humanity, which had not as yet developed the eyes which permitted them to gaze into the face of truth and live." Now, I know, many believe the Freemasons are simply a centuries-old charitable fraternity group, right? However, the Catholic Church has consistently condemned Freemasonry for more than any other era in its history because it promotes indifferentism, naturalism, communism, and other dangerous philosophies. Basically, all the isms. It is critical to know, if you are interested in zooming in on the source of evil in this world, that centuries of leaked documents, former insider accounts, and scholarly research has shown that Freemasonry has become the most pervasive, influential, and powerful of all the sects and secret societies on this earth. Remember, the elites speak in the language of symbols, which we'll get to later, but the Freemasons claim to believe in the great architect of the universe, and you must be a creationist who believes in a supreme being to join them. Atheists are considered fools by Masons. But this architect is not Yahweh, the God of Adam, Moses, and Noah. They claim the G in their compass symbol is for geometry, or God. But others who quote famous Grand Masons Eliphas Levi and Albert Pike to claim that the Masonic G really stands for Gnosis and generation. Gnosis is knowledge. Generation in the biblical context could mean genetics or bloodline. In The Mysteries of Magic by Eliphas Levi and interpreted by author Edward Waite, it is written, all these magical theorems, based on the unique dogma of Hermes and on the anthological inductions of science, have been invariably confirmed by the visions of ecstatics and by the convulsions of cataleptics under the supposed possession of spirits. The G which Freemasons place in the center of the burning star signifies Gnosis and generation, the two sacred words of the ancient Kabbalah. It also signifies Grand Architect, for the pentagram, from whatever side it may be looked at, always represents an A. Albert Pike had reconfirmed this fact by quoting Levi's book, Liturgy of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. In the center of his blazing star, Freemasons placed the letter G. It signifies Gnosis and generation, the two sacred words of the ancient Kabbalah, and also the Grand Architect, for the pentagram, whichever way we view it, presents the letter A. Historian Jasper Ridley claims in his book, The Freemasons, that before joining a lodge, all Masons must accept that the god of Freemasonry is Jah Bulan, and they learn this once they get to the Royal Arch degree. Interestingly, Jubulan is a composite word made up of three parts. Jah is the Hebrew name for God. Jehovah is very similar to Jehovah, and is also used by certain Rastafarian religions to mean God. Bull refers to the Babylonian deity Baal. An refers to the Egyptian deity Osiris. The ancient mystery schools which spawned the world's current secret societies, of which Freemasonry became the dominant strain, trace their roots back to ancient Egypt and Babylon. Hence, Nimrod may be yet another name for the god of Freemasonry. Now, there's an article on MediaMonarchy.com that states, Masonic writers dwell heavily on a descendant of Ham as one of the founders of Masonry, Nimrod. In the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, under the heading Nimrod, we find the legend of the craft in the old constitutions refers to Nimrod as one of the founders of Masonry. Thus, in the York MS number 1, we read, At ye, making of ye Tor of Babel, there was a Masonry first much esteemed of, and the king of Babylon, yet called Nimrod, was a Mason himself, and loved well Masons. As Nimrod had so many things attributed to him, it was only reasonable for peoples, now in segregation, to adopt the portion of belief best interpreted by each group. Thus, diverse religious attributes and beliefs, yet peoples remaining reverent to their God. We find such names for this revered god, Nimrod, in scripture as Shemash, Moloch, Merodach, Remphan, like the star of Remphan, Tammuz, his son, Baal, just to name a few. Did you catch that Moloch was among the other names of the god of Freemasonry? The same Moloch is featured at Bohemian Grove, where secret society initiates perform black magic, mock sacrifices, and other rituals under a giant 40-foot owl. Baphomet is another god associated with Freemasonry, even though some Freemasons officially deny it. You can see Master Mason George Washington doing his Baphomet pose in D.C. at the Apotheosis of Washington. Baphomet was a hermaphroditic god, which plays an important role in the culture war of today. Now, some confusion revolves still around the Code of Canon Law, published in 1917. And this code was the following law: those who join a Masonic sect or other societies of the same sort, which plot against the church or against legitimate civil authority, incur ipso facto an excommunication simply reserved to the holy. Historically, Masons were well known for plotting against the church and financially supporting organizations that attacked the church. Sounds familiar? I just want to bring y'all back for a minute. It kind of sounds like what's going on with T.D. Jakes right now. However, as some of the Masons seem to be moving more away from anti-Catholicism and were noted for their many and fine works of charity, folks began to reason that since their particular lodge had no history of attacking Catholics, it was okay to join them. Church leaders even seemed to struggle with this idea. If an individual lodge isn't active in or even concerned with attacking Catholicism, but is doing charitable works, maybe it's okay to join. To add to the confusion, Canon Law removed specific mention of the Masons in the line that previously addressed them. To address this confusion and clarify the Church's teaching on Catholics joining the Freemasons, the Sacred Congregation released the following statement in 1983 with the approval of Pope John Paul II. The Church's negative position of Masonic association remains unaltered, since their principles have always been regarded as irreconcilable with the Church's doctrine. Hence, joining them remains prohibited by the Church. Catholics enrolled in Masonic associations are involved in serious sin and may not approach Holy Communion. Albert Pike and Manly Hall are former Masons, whose work is widely quoted by those seeking to understand what exactly Freemasonry is. Both of these men referred explicitly to Lucifer as the god of Freemasonry. Pike spoke of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, while Hall wrote about the seething energies of Lucifer, which can be awakened by Master Masons. And I quote, "Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness, Lucifer, the son of the morning. It is he who bears the light, and with his splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls, doubt it not." Morals and Dogma, the ancient and accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry, on page 321. That can be found. Now, another quote by Mr. Manly P. Hall. "When the Masons learn that the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mystery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands, and before he may step onwards and upwards, he must prove his ability to properly apply this energy." This is in a book called Lost Keys of Freemasonry on page 48. So anytime you speak to a Freemasonry, understand that their god is Lucifer. This is what one of the oldest Freemasonries has said. They worship Lucifer. That is their god. That is their god. Now, the Most High God tells us that the life of creatures is in the blood. The living power is blood sacrifice. Freemasonry, like other strands of Satanism, inverts everything and takes the opposite as the truth. Grand Commander and Sovereign Pontiff of Universal Freemasonry, Albert Pike, was quoted as giving instructions to the 23 Supreme Councils of the world. And it said the following: "That which we must say to the crowd is, we worship a God, but it is the God one adores without superstition. To you, Sovereign Grand Inspector General, we say this, and you may repeat it to the brethren of the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. The Masonic religion should be by all of us initiates of the high degrees maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. If Lucifer were not God, with Adonai, the God of the Christians, whose deeds prove cruelty, perfidy, and hatred of man, barbarism, and repulsion for science, would Adonai and his priests communate him? Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately, Adonai is also God. For the eternal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, no white without black. For the absolute can only exist as two gods, darkness being necessary for light to serve as its foil, as the pedestal is necessary to the statue and the brake to the locomotive. Thus, the doctrine of Satanism is heresy, and the true and pure physiological religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai. But Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. This was recorded by A.C. de la Rive, La Femme et l'Enfant, in France. It's on page 588. Now, cited from the Question of Freemasonry, 2nd edition, 1986, by Edward Decker, page 12 through 14. This is the very same Albert Pike, whom I have quoted elsewhere as predicting a World War III scenario where the NWO controllers pit Zionism against Islam. Follow me closely on this. We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist, and we shall provoke a great social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to all nations the effect of absolute atheism, the origins of savagery, and of most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the people will be forced to defend themselves against the world minority of the world revolutionaries, and will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitudes delusioned with Christianity, whose spirits will be from that moment without direction and leadership, and anxious for an ideal, but without knowledge where to send its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer brought finally out into public view. A manifestation which will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Is that what we are now? Is that not what we are looking at right now, people? Are we still unbothered? Follow me. Which it calls light is really gnosis, knowledge, the forbidden kind. The open admission of esteemed Masons that the god of Freemasonry is Lucifer is itself another inversion. The light is not what you think it is. In context, light is not synonymous with good, pure, moral, or love. Remember, Freemasonry extols the virtue of intellect and knowledge represented by the light. They worship Prometheus, the mythological figure who stole fire from the gods and gave it to mankind. Not coincidentally, in another of his myths, Prometheus establishes a form of animal sacrifice that was practiced in ancient Greece. Rich and powerful people are worshiping something, and they're not just doing it for fun. They're doing it to get something out of it. Well, if you made it this far, I would like to say thank you. I appreciate your time. And like I said, this is only the first part. This will continue. We will continue to speak about these sacred sects. We will next probably speak on Eastern Stars or the beginning of the Illuminati. I'm open to comments and requests. Please subscribe if you like this type of content. Give the video a thumbs up. If you like what you heard, share. And like I said, I'm open to comments. Be blessed and also remain unbothered. I'm out.